Am I really about to talk about more PlayStation 5 news and more Sony news? Yep, I am, because Sony, it would seem, has decided to drop so much news this week that people could probably write endless articles about them and produce endless videos about them. Because while Sony has dominated this entire generation with a great piece of hardware, they've also brought out some of the best exclusives we've seen from a publisher. So that makes them the dominant force in the gaming industry, which in turn makes everybody pay attention to them. And that's exactly what's happening now with the new PS5 coming out next year. A lot of things are changing in the gaming industry, and people are all paying attention to what Microsoft and Sony are doing. What fundamental changes are coming, and how will they tackle this new generation? And lately, Sony has been pulling back the curtain a little bit on what they've planned for the PlayStation 5. We have a new head of PlayStation Worldwide Studios. We have Jim Ryan coming out and talking about the future of their exclusives and PS Now, along with all their services. All of this came out in a span of a day because we've seen for some time there's been turnover at PlayStation and Sony. And with the new console generation approaching quickly, this type of news is what's going to ultimately shape the generation for Sony. So let's dive into what all of this change means and what exactly is being said by these top executives. Because no matter what we want, this is Sony's future and what these people have planned for it. But before we dive into that, if you like the video, hit that subscribe button and that like button. The support is greatly appreciated. Alright, the first set of news I want to talk about has to be what Jim Ryan has said about their exclusives and what that means for the PS Now subscription service. As we know, the service is very similar to Xbox Game Pass, where you're able to pay a very reasonable fee every month, and in turn you'll get hundreds of titles to play on your PlayStation or Xbox respectively. And while we all know that Xbox Game Pass is a huge part of Xbox's future, especially next generation, we still haven't heard that much about what PS Now means to PlayStation and what it means to PlayStation 5's future. That's until Jim Ryan talked about the service and brought up a lot of talking points that should make every gamer pay attention to. Here's exactly what he had to say. We are taking this very seriously. The commitment we've made in terms of price cuts, the investment in content, the marketing campaign, it's really a pretty vivid illustration of that seriousness. We've been doing this for a number of years, and very quietly, we've been taking an awful lot from it. We had an important inflection point earlier this year when we were able to bring the last 7 data centers online for Scandinavia, Italy, and Spain, which gave us blanket coverage of Western Europe. That was a game-changing moment because as somebody who spent a lot of time in Europe, I was nervous talking too much about a service that a German player could enjoy, but an Italian gamer could not. So we were switching on the lights at the various data centers, and that process was rather time-consuming. Only when we got to the point where we have the whole of Western Europe could we have a proper conversation with the European community and start to take this seriously. Now, there's a lot to unravel here because he brings up so many great points when it comes to PS Now. The first of which has to be that they're taking the service very seriously. And if you've been paying any kind of attention to the service, you have to agree that they have been making this service very approachable to any kind of gamer. He brings up the price cuts and the investment in content, and of course, the marketing campaign. And we all can't deny with the price cuts and then bringing their best exclusive content like God of War and Uncharted 4 on the service is a great way to show fans that this service is here to stay. But the most important part of this has to be when he brings up the 7 data centers all over Europe. Now, I've said for a while now that PS Now and Xbox Game Pass are long plays for both Sony and Microsoft. They're great services, but still need to be established over a long period of time. And right now, over the next several years, Sony is building upon their data structures and using other companies' assets to bring PS Now to everyone they possibly can. It's why they made a deal with Microsoft to use their cloud services in gaming. Now, while that sounds good for both companies, it still takes time to establish all of this and get it off the ground. The first step for Sony is cutting the price and actually getting as many people on the service as possible and building it from there. Ryan continues to talk about it when he says this about his exclusives. It's an area that's fast changing and fluid. The nature and scale of some of the first-party games that we are making leads us to think that right now, it's better to spend energy on making sure that the launch of those games is a massive entertainment event. I would cite God of War and Spider-Man, and The Last of Us 2 next year will fall into that category. That's where we stand right now. But our stance on the inclusion of first-party games on PS Now in terms of what we've done this month is very different to our stance 12 months ago. I don't want to say this is what PS Now is going to be like forever, but certainly right now, given how some of our first-party IP is incredibly special and valuable, we just want to treat them with amazing care and respect and have those launches be clean and pure. Now, this is some of the best PR speak he could have done because he does say that things are changing and everything is very fluid. That means they're very ready to flirt with this market and see if it goes anywhere. But what gets me the most is that even in the last 12 months, things have changed for the company. And how could it not? Top executives have left the company and some have even stepped down and took on a lesser role. So of course, with all of these changes at the high level, there will be some changes in how they conduct their business. And one of the biggest changes I've seen is how they treat PS Now and a lot of their exclusive games. Now, I know that Ryan just said they want to make their launches of their exclusive games to be clean and pure, and I think that means that the games they've currently announced and maybe the games for the next year or so will not launch on PS Now. And if they decided to launch those on the service, they will have to rewrite some of the code in order for the game to stream on the service, not to mention work across PC and PS4 and PlayStation 5. So I think they decided to accept the fact that these games coming in the next year won't be able to launch on the service without there being some kind of problem. So for them, it's much better for the people that are part of the PS4 fan base to get a great experience with the exclusive games, while also protecting the people on PS Now so they don't have a horrible experience playing one of the games they're streaming on the service. So while he said their games won't launch on the service, he still stated that things are very fluid and things change extremely fast. So don't be surprised that in the next year or so that PS Now will have their exclusive games day and date on the service, especially since the service has already gone over 1 million subscribers after the price cut and the massive marketing push they've done. To me, that shows that Sony is taking the service very seriously and wants the service to be one of the cornerstones for them. And to do that, they need the content, which they've been more than ready to provide. And the reason all of this is happening is because a lot of new faces have taken over for Sony PlayStation. There's a lot of people like Sean Layden who have left the company altogether, and now we have Yoshida taking on a lesser role within the company. And because of this, we have probably the biggest change happening. Herman Hulst will be the PlayStation's new head of worldwide studios. Here's what they said about him being appointed the position. Herman is a European who will be taking one of the major offices of PlayStation. I think everybody in Europe should be thrilled and happy and proud that this is happening. He continued in a statement, Herman is one of the most effective and well-respected leaders in the video game industry. He is a passionate advocate for the teams he leads and understands how to empower creative talent to build great experiences. I have no doubt Herman can lead our teams to deliver compelling and diverse experiences at a steady cadence. Now, this guy came straight from Guerrilla Games, the people behind Horizon Zero Dawn, which is one of the most successful games this generation for Sony. So he has a great relationship with Sony and obviously works extremely well with them and is embedded in their culture. So to me, this seems like a very natural fit. Not to mention it shows again that things are changing at Sony and all of these new people are the reason it's happening. While the PlayStation 4 was a huge success, that doesn't mean they can bring the same strategy next generation and expect the same results. Instead, they see the rise of competition with Microsoft, Nintendo, Google, and decided to change certain things up at the company. And that's why I think the future plan for Sony PlayStation is going to look very different than what we saw this last generation, because they see the tides changing and they understand that gaming is evolving into something else. There's a lot more money in gaming and a lot more investment. It's not just about the console anymore, it's about content, services, infrastructure, cloud gaming, and of course, leaderships that understands all of this. To me, this is an extremely smart move and helps Sony set themselves up for great success in the future. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, never count out Sony when it comes to gaming. They are always at the forefront of what's happening and they tend to always find success. So I'm expecting a lot of change to happen over the next year at Sony. Let's all hope it works out for them. But enough about what I think. Tell me what you think about all of this. Do you think PS Now will get exclusives day and date in the service? Are you happy with what Jim Ryan said about PS Now? How do you feel about Yoshida taking on a lesser role in the company? Do you trust the new leadership at PlayStation? Are you worried about the next generation for Sony? What future do you see at Sony PlayStation? Go down below and let me know. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit that subscribe button and that like button. The support helps the channel out more than you know. And give me a follow on Twitter at Zalker87. I'm always on there talking games and sharing my videos. And also follow me on Mixer. I recently started streaming on Mixer because I find the community much more engaging and fun. So if you want to hang out and chat with me, I'm very active with my chat and always playing games. The links will be in the description. I hope to see you guys there. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, enjoy your gaming. Later.